Yo, how's everybody doing? Everybody being 0 viewers in this case. My name is Bill. I am about to dig into an extra large batch of data from the Federal Electoral Commission. They traditionally provide stuff in a sort of squirrely data format called a .fec file as candidates submit information to them about their donors over the course of a political cycle. But strangely, I didn't realize they'd started doing this. They're aggregating everything now in a really neat tabular format that just makes it extremely easy to work with. So I'm gonna just sort of work my way through the process of dealing with the data itself and try and answer a couple of questions that have been occurring to me throughout the political cycle. And these are just pretty basic things like how much money does Trump actually have from individual contributors? How many dollars are coming from super PACs to the Democratic Party, to the Republican Party, to other parties as well. The FEC keeps records of tons of these. So yeah, I'm going to use a couple of tools for dealing with large data sets, and I'll go into detail about those as we go. So onward. Let's see. So to start with, I'm going to check out the FEC's page. And you can see I'm already a few steps down here, but this website, which I've included in the links of the Hangout here, include complete filings by election cycle. So right now we're in 2015 to 16 cycle. And this is pretty nondescript. This is actually tremendously important data. You can see that the last update here is June 26th. Whoa, actually that was yesterday. Man, I'm already gonna be working with outdated information here. But there are 7 million individual contributions. So in a lot of cases, candidates are not required to file information about their contributors, but they have opted to do so anyway. As I recall, the condition is whether or not somebody has given $200 or more. All of that needs to be reported, but most of the presidential candidates tend to be reporting everything that comes in, regardless of amount. So let's see. Oh, just quick background on why I'm interested in this. So I work for a company called Faraday, and we do a lot of demographic modeling for our customers. We try and figure out if there's a particular way of figuring out the likelihood of a household to, buy a residential solar array and put it on their roof. Try and figure out what sort of factors influence that. And traditionally we found that some of them are not things that you expect. Like for instance, whether or not somebody owns a pool is actually a really good predictor of whether or not they'll be interested in solar panels. But information that we haven't brought in yet and are interested in doing is political data. So obviously the way that somebody donates is not going to be completely predictive of how they're going to behave, but it's something that's a potentially interesting angle on a person's behavior, and we're interested in taking a look at that. So that brought me to the FEC's site a few months ago, and the data was still kind of tough to work with at that point. But now it is in this fabulous complete dump file that we can work with. So that's a compressed text file. You can see that there's actually a header file for it. So let's see, we'll look at the data dictionary here. The header is this. That's just a CSV with a single line, and on that line is each of these fields. But it's very well-structured data. You can see there's committee ID. That's going to be key for attaching this to information about the committees themselves. What type of transaction it was, very interestingly, how much the transaction was. So this will tell you how much people gave in a particular transaction, when they did, also employer and occupation, and then Also, you can see that the FEC has made committee information available. And in that case, the info is where they're based, who the treasurer is, what type of committee it is, and this is going to be kind of important as we go into the data, whether there's a committee party affiliation, and man, I wanted this to be super useful info, but it unfortunately is not comprehensive. There are many, many committees that simply don't declare party affiliation. It looks like it's not a requirement, but there are a lot that do, so we can look at those. So let's say you downloaded this data, you want to work with it. I highly recommend a tool called CSV Kit, and it's a command line data processing toolkit, and it lets you just make simple commands like this. So you have an Excel file and you want it to be a CSV, you use the into CSV module of CSV Kit, and it turns it into a perfectly workable CSV from an Excel file. There are tons of different functions, and if you go through usage, you can see there's input, processing, output, all sorts of things like that, but I'll just be using a few of these as we go along. But I've been keeping track of some of the steps I've taken here. So when I first downloaded the file and unzipped it, I saw it was like 1.1 gigabytes or something gigantic. For structured data. So I was mostly just interested in looking at the top few rows to see how the data was formed. So these are the files that I've been working with in the original directory, but here's the one that I downloaded and unzipped. So it's itcont.txt. So let's just look at the top 5 rows of that. We use a Unix command called head, and that is that file. That's probably just going to give us something that looks pretty raw. Yeah, you can see that the FEC provides these pipe delimited, and you definitely don't want to interpret it as comma delimited because the names have commas in them. But let's assume that that is something I want to look at with a little bit more detail. I'm going to use a tool called CSV Look, which is part of CSV Kit. I'm going to tell it that the delimiter is a pipe, and then I'm going to render it. And back out a little bit. Wow, all right, that's kind of an unfortunate thing to be happening right now. Anyway, this information is, if you can actually change the zoom of your text, in a much better structure for looking at. You can see though it's misinterpreting the header. It thinks that the first line is the header, and it's not, it's just information. The FEC provided that data without a header. So we actually need to add the header onto it. I've downloaded that separately, and you can see the first step there is to create the file that we're going to be working with in the end here, individual 2016, as a copy of just the header. And then on top of that, I format the data that comes from that itcont file and write it to the same file that I've just created. So that gives me something that looks a lot more like a CSV. 2016, but that was the right name, yep. Oh, no. .csv, there we go. And this looks like a pretty straightforward CSV. And you can see it's quoting the fields that have commas in them, so it's not gonna get tripped up on that. And it also starts with the header. So that's pretty awesome. That's a good starting spot. I also wanted to make sure that each record, each individual contribution had the information associated with the committee attached. So where that money was going, what the purpose of that committee was, if it was stated, or if it was one of these super vague like Take Back America named committees. But all that information I wanted attached. So I used this function, which is called CSV Join, to bring together the individual contributions and the committee info. It's a left join, which is database speak for a one-to-many. So every time a committee record would occur, it'll attach it to that record, or it'll attach it to the individual contribution record, and that gives us this output file. Individual 2016 joined. Look at the top part of that, and you can see that this is more information. It's got, in addition to all this stuff about the donor, it's got information about the committee now. So where the committee is from, designation, party affiliation, etc. And you can see some of these. This one is Family Research Council, Political Action Committee. It's the name of the treasurer, where it's based, what the organization is, and there's tons of info that the FEC is sitting on here. And yeah, let's dig into it a little bit. I will include a link to this in the comments here, but I've been using Postgres, which is a relational database system, to actually sort of mess around with the data. CSV Kit is wonderful for looking at smaller batches of information, even up into the tens of thousands of rows, but this data set is 6.7 million individual records. And that's something where Postgres really shines. So without getting into too much detail, I created a shell table in the database. I added the CSV to that shell table so that it was populated, and then I created a bunch of indexes, which are going to make it easier to sort of traverse that information, to look through it and to look for patterns and groupings and things like that. So hopefully that'll speed things up as we go here. But let's take a look at the data. So I'm going to go to my database here. It's FEC. I'm going to look at the tables I've already imported here. You can see I've got the complete individual 2016 nationwide table. I've also pulled one out that's specific to the state of Vermont, because that's where I am, that's where I'm from, and I'm particularly interested in that stuff. So let's find out how many records exactly we have in the total file. And you'll find that this is such a big data set that it, in some cases, will take many seconds to return just a simple query like this. So you can see that's 6.7 million. Yep, we have the correct number here. Let's see what's in this data, make sure that we have the right header file. Yep, you can see that it's got a whole bunch of fields here. Most of them are text except for this key one, which is the actual amount of the donation, which is an integer. Let's look at the top few rows. So this means select everything, the star, from individual 2016. And just so it doesn't load all 7 million of them into memory, I'm going to have it limit to the first 5 records. So this person is John E. Gilbertson from Clive, Iowa. He's retired, and he gave $300 to Carly for president. That's a pretty basic bit of information there, but it can tell you a lot, particularly once we start digging into this in aggregate. Let's see, we can see that the Carly for President committee is it's Republican declared. There's some information that they didn't say anything about, but also where it's based out of, Alexandria, Virginia, close to DC, but not specifically located there. Let's see, we'll look at the next one here. Next one was Kurt Russell from Ketchum, Idaho, also giving to Carly for president. Probably the way this is structured, I bet these are mostly Fiorina-based donations. Yep. So that's just the very top of the file we're looking at. Let's start getting some actual statistics. So see how many people gave money to the Carly for President committee. Where the committee name equals Carly for President. 27,627 people gave money to this committee. Good first bit of information, but we're also concerned with how much was given total. So let's figure that out. I'm gonna, just because it's a little bit easier to read, I'm gonna use what's called the money formatter. So money will be, it'll be given a $sign and commas in the right places, just so we know what we're looking at. So we can see the transaction amount field is the one we're looking for here. So the sum of that, let's see. So this will tell us how many people and what the total was that they gave. So out of 28,000 people, $6.5 million. That's how much was given to that particular committee. And that, I mean, all things considered, that was in the span of a pretty short run. So some pretty significant amounts of money getting tossed around here. And let's just look at the total of all transactions that are recorded here. So I'm going to remove this conditional clause. I'm just going to see of all these transactions what the national total was, and it is $2.639 billion. That's how much money the FEC has recorded in individual contributions to political committees, both candidate and unaffiliated. So that's a lot of money, and that's not even telling the whole story. As Derek Willis of ProPublica pointed out to me, these filings don't necessarily include refunds that have been given, and they also don't include a whole other class of potential donations. So this is a lot of money is moving around here that we can see, and there's a lot that's also moving that we can't see. Incidentally, definitely follow Derek Willis on Twitter. He says amazing things about the stuff he finds in the FEC filings, and he's usually on it much quicker than I or anybody else are. So yeah, much is owed there. And while I'm at it, honestly, let me thank the FEC for providing this data in such an awesome, clean format. This is still maybe a little unheard of in the world of open data, that a government agency with really interesting information about the way that we behave as a society makes it available in a timely and easy to use format. And yeah, that's just like, man, we owe the FEC big time for providing this information. This is great. So pay your taxes. We owe the FEC. All right, so let's say we're interested in seeing information grouped in a particular way. So where people do declare a party affiliation for their committee, let's find out how much money is running through that. So I'm going to, let's see, committee party affiliation. I'm going to select that. I'm going to select the total count and also the total in dollars for each of these. And I'm going to group by and then just to keep things squared away, I'm going to sort these so that we can look at the richest ones first. Yeah, descending will give us the first ones up here. This is where my atrocious spelling and generally bad typing comes into play. So yeah, that might take a couple of seconds to come back, but when it does, it's going to tell us in order of the biggest donations. Wow, okay, so $1.491 trillion did not have any declared party affiliation. And the two you would expect to come in after that, Democrats have raised $573 million, Republicans $514 million over the course of this cycle. And again, I should note again, this is last month's filing, so this is as of May 26th, and there is a new file out there that would reflect some updated numbers. But you can see there's this huge range of parties here, all using kind of funky codes that don't make a lot of sense. So UNK is unknown, so not declared, but unknown. Let's find out what this next one is, because some party here, NNE, pulled down 95,000 donations for $8 million. We can find out who they are by looking at the data dictionary that the FEC provides. So there's the committee master file data dictionary, and then they have a list of party codes. So let's look at NNE. Oh, none, of course. And all right, so there's no stated association. In that case, so I thank the FEC for providing largely clean data, but a perfectly clean data set would have some combination. There would be some sort of aggregation between unknown, none, and not stated at all. While we're on this game though, let's go down to DFL with 3,000 donations totaling $2.5 million. DFL is the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. I have never heard of that party, and they have pulled down $2.5 million in donations during the 2015-2016 election cycle. The fact that I haven't heard of it doesn't really mean anything, but it's pretty fascinating that there's this big laundry list of parties, and they're getting a pretty broad range of donations, and some of them are not insignificant by any means, but they're just dwarfed by these undeclared and the two major parties at the top here. So some of these committees are super PACs, which are individual expenditure committees, and some of them are affiliated with presidential candidacies. So I'm mostly interested in the presidential candidates here. There are, you know what, let's take a quick look at what other types of money is being given, like to what other races. We're still fine. I'm going to go for committee type. And this is going to give us a sense of whether people are giving money to super PACs, to congressional campaigns, to presidential campaigns, and we'll have to interpret these results with another data dictionary, list of committee type codes. But these are the ones we're going to be most interested in here. The O is basically a super PAC, independent expenditure only. P is presidential candidate or directly affiliated. PAC is a qualified political action committee. And then you can see there's Senate, and one of these is House. Which one? Yeah, so S and H are what you would expect, and a whole bunch of other possibilities here. So, whew, this is kind of amazing. O, if you'll recall, was the super PAC category, and you can see $733 million are funneled through that type of PAC. And of the total, there are only 63,000 of these donations that end up totaling 730 million. By comparison, you look at Q. Q is a qualified PAC. Next one down is $414 million, but there are 2 million, nearly 3 million donations were made to total that. So much smaller dollar. These super PAC donations are coming in as a pretty large amount of money. And I'm gonna add another column to our results here, using something similar to what we have here already, but I'm going to do a average individual contribution column, which Postgres makes all of this stuff pretty easy if you know the syntax, but it takes a little while to figure it out. So I'm going to again do the money formatting, and then it'll be this amount, the total of the transactions divided by the count of transactions, and then you got to do some weird jujitsu to turn this into something that the money formatter can interpret. Just bear with me. And this should hopefully give us an average donation per type of committee. Man, that super PAC one is going to be, that's nuts. So the super PAC average contribution is nearly $12,000, which just dwarfs any other type here. Qualified PACs are getting an average of 150. Presidential campaigns are getting an average of 200. House campaigns are a little bit more expensive, House and Senate, but the one that stands way the heck out here is the Super PAC average donation of $11,620. Yipes. Just out of curiosity, I want to know what this average donation of $4,800 is. So that is committee type D, and that is a delegate committee. So influencing the selection of delegates to presidential nominating conventions. Oh, wow. All right, so I wonder if that's the sort of thing that before he suspended his campaign, there were a lot of stories going around of Ted Cruz doing a lot to influence who the delegate selection would be in the hope of upending Trump in the when they finally got to the convention. So I am very curious to know if that's the sort of committee that that would have been organizing that or arranging that, because it certainly seems at nearly $5,000 per average donation, it seems like something that could be influenced by larger quantities of money much more easily than the voting itself in the first place. All right, we've looked at those committee types. I'm actually going to go back to party affiliation just to see what average donation is coming out to there. Try desperately not to misspell more things. All right, while that's coming in, I'm just going to take a quick look over here. Sweet. All right, so again, we notice that undeclared average is pretty high, but it's not nearly as high as the average Republican contribution, 579. That Democratic Farm Labor Party average contribution is quite a bit higher, nearly $1,000. And some of these other ones stand out, but you can see once the count starts getting pretty low, the information is of less use. So the two numbers that are interesting here, average Democratic donation across all committee types is $326. Average Republican amount is $579. So yeah, bit of a disparity there. Let's take a look at just the presidential campaigns and see how this looks. So I'm going to put another where clause on here. What was that? It was committee type equals P. That's going to significantly reduce the amount that we're seeing here because these are direct authorized presidential campaign committees. Cool. So you can see the Democrats have pulled down $200 million directly to their presidential campaigns. So I have no idea how much O'Malley was able to raise in his brief time there, but that's split between Clinton and Sanders. Republicans have raised 132 directly to their candidate committees. Let's take a quick look at the super PACs and see what they're coming up with. Oh wait, did something wrong here. Committee type equals 0, but O. Oh, wow. All right. Well, that's an interesting way to learn that. But basically, what this is telling me is that the super PACs don't declare a party ever, which I guess is, partially by design. But that's, $733 million that's not associated with any party. That is all listed under unknown. It's actually really interesting. Because it doesn't take much for an observer to figure out which party a super PAC would be affiliated with. I think Jeb Bush's was called Right to Rise. It raised a ton of money, and it would be extremely incorrect to consider that anything other than a Republican leaning super PAC. Like that was the sort of influence they were hoping to have. But by this metric, they did not declare any party affiliation. So let's actually look at that. Let's see, of the, yeah, so I'm gonna just select out the names. Where the name is similar to right. We'll see what we get for this, because there are lots and lots of committees. I'm going to use a wildcard here. So basically that little percent sign on either side means that any character can appear before or any character after. I'm looking for everything that just has the word right in it. So we'll see if that gives us anything with a reasonable amount of time. Wow, all right, 38 committees have the word right in them, all the way down to Right to Life Oregon PAC. Let's see, Right to Rise USA. That's the one I'm interested in right now. So I'm going to get a count and a total, actually, and an average without the grouping. We're going to do where committee name equals Right to Rise USA. In which I forget how SQL works. Wow. Yep. Okay. They raised 121 million out of 4,500 people. Average donation was $27,000. That is a frightfully specific average donation, which tells me that each of those people who gave to that PAC gave exactly that amount, or some derivation of it, or perhaps there's a bundling structure. And it also suggests that 27,000 is some sort of maximum, either for tax purposes or for actual federal limits. You know, that I'm going to stop speculating, because I don't know that that's correct. I was under the impression that there are no federal limits on the amount you can contribute to a super PAC. But in any case, Jeb Bush's PAC had 4,495 people donating $121 million at an average of 27,000. Let's take a look at the, yeah, you know what? Let's do some grouping by committee name and broken down by what type and what party they're associated with. So there's that big grouping query that I'm going to come back to and keep using. So committee party affiliation and committee name. Our committee type is a presidential committee. And then let's do committee name. So this will hopefully group things by party and sort them by the amount given. So, wow, that is an intense war chest. Whoa. Clinton's authorized political action committee has $150 million as of May 26th. And that's off of an average donation of 260 bucks. Ted Cruz came in next. It's interesting to see that he did not declare a party affiliation, even though many of the other candidates did, for his official authorized committee. But he pulled down nearly 400,000 donations, over $50 million. Bernie 2016, third with 46,000. That's not telling the whole story, because he also pulled in a huge number of donations from Act Blue, which is sort of it's a Democratic associated fundraising apparatus, which I don't think it qualifies as a super PAC by any means. It's funneling money directly to a chosen candidate, but for some reason, the FEC structured data coming from the information coming from ActBlue separately. But man, so just looking at the candidates by how much their own campaigns raised, 2 Democrats in the top 3, whole bunch of Republicans coming in right underneath that. And you can see even Rick Santorum managed to raise $1 million off of, a not insignificant number of donors there. George Pataki less so, Jim Webb no. We get down towards the bottom here, and man, Dale Christensen, 2016, managed to get 10 donors to give him $9,000. Let's see, Duckwall, Jeff George, committee to elect Lloyd Kelso president, 7 donors, average of $1,800. Whoa, even Herman, man, people were trying to draft Herman Cain. Wow. There are a lot of people who run for president. Interesting that Jill Stein is actually, for all her public profile, she is very, very far behind. She is not at all competitive in fundraising. And the same could be said for Gary Johnson, which just sort of gives you a picture of how much money drives the campaigns here. That the ostensible 3rd and 4th parties, the Libertarians and the Greens, are basically, like by this metric, they're basically not competing at all. And I would imagine they're trying to use other methods of getting exposure. Wow, all right, so 73 parties are officially associated with presidential campaigns. Really curiously, there's a single $45 donation to Obama for America, right down at the bottom. I don't even know how that would be possible because OFA has transitioned to Organizing for America. The Obama for America organization as it existed in 2008 and 2012 does not exist anymore. So I don't know where that money went, but it got to the FEC, the information of it got to the FEC somehow. I'd be really interested to know what the deal is with that. Let's take a look at the super PACs, and then we'll just combine all of them and see what it looks like. Oh God, all right, this is just a lot of information. So Right to Rise was at the top, Priorities USA Action, Conservative Solutions. The reason this got reformatted was that I have a special Postgres results formatter here. When the results would be pushed off the page, it just sort of slips them all into their individual records. So for a single record, this is all of this. This is what I meant earlier by the sort of vague names. Is I'm a pretty informed political observer. I read the news regularly, and man, I don't recognize many of these. Unintimidated PAC, Conservative Solutions PAC, Priorities USA, Right to Rise. Let's see. Just sort of guessing that this is the first of the left-leaning cohort. With an average donation of over $200,000. Man, that's amazing. So yeah, that definitely clears up what the situation here might be with Right to Rise. It's definitely not anything to do with the federal limit, because there are donations much, much higher than that. For instance, Opportunity and Freedom won 18 million in the war chest with an average donation of 4.7 million. Those are some extremely rich folks trying to have some influence. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to Google and see what the deal is. I highly recommend checking out Open Secrets here. This committee is a single candidate super PAC in support of Rick Perry. No way. Oh man, that's amazing. Rick Perry managed to raise a lot of money off of very few people in a very short period of time. Senate Majority PAC, Club for Growth Action. Yeah, some of these make more sense, but a lot of them are just kind of vaguely named. and still a lot of money being thrown around here. So let's take a look at these, both presidential and super PAC. Or I should say both affiliated and unaffiliated. Let's back it out a little bit so we can see these. Hopefully, there we go. So still on the top here, Hillary for America, but Right to Rise, the super PAC, comes in directly behind her for total. Priorities USA Action, Conservative Solutions PAC. Wow. So the top fundraiser, the top fundraising committee of this election cycle is Hillary Clinton's campaign, her authorized PAC. The next three are all super PACs, followed by Ted Cruz's official committee. Let's see. I'm still not seeing Act Blue listed here, so I'm going to start including. I'm going to run this query again, but with authorized or with qualified PACs included as well. And we'll see how this shakes out. Same deal. Let's see if I can actually get that formatted correctly. Yeah, interesting. It looks to be about the same. And I'm also, I'm interested in throwing the type in there to see what it looks like. Okay, so same story, Hillary for America right at the top. Next three still super PACs. Wow. Honeywell International Political Action Committee giving 4.7 million, or given 4.7 million by 74,000 people. That sort of makes me wonder if that's employee contributing directly. You can see a union pretty high up the list here with a pretty well-funded super PAC. Planned Parenthood, Emily's List. So there's an interesting mix here, but right at the top, I only see two democratically affiliated committees. They're out of the top 15 or so. So Republicans definitely ahead in the money game altogether. I'm going to do one more thing and take a quick look at, because I actually need to get back to other things, but I'm going to take a quick look at, oh wow, actually before I do that, I see there's a single $10 million contribution for Keep the Promise 2. I'm going to go take a look at that on Open Secrets. Whoa! Single contribution to Ted Cruz. I wonder if this is the Sheldon Adelson. Nope. Oh yeah, maybe. That's amazing. $10 million lump sum. Only $1 million of it spent. Okay, so the last thing I was going to do here is take a look at this data split out by the employer of the donor. So in a lot of cases, this might not be declared, but we're going to take a quick look here. This is how I tend to do my query structures. Like if I have something that works, I'm not going to write the whole thing out again. I'm just going to hit the up key, and it'll give me the previous query, and then I can edit it. Okay, so not declared, no employer declared is 228 million. Retired, self-employed, not applicable, self-employed. It's interesting that, again, FEC, thank you for your data, but these should probably be conflated. Interesting, FAR LLC, 6 donations total, 24 million. Let's see what we can find out about that. FAR Group, executive search consultants. Interesting. I'm almost wondering if that's wrong. Oh, there we go. Coordinates the political advocacy donations for billionaire Tom Steyer. Interesting. Okay, so that's a liberal PAC. Wow. That's funny. They managed to crack into the top 10 with 6 donations. Self also being self-employed, none. Homemaker, and I don't think this is necessarily something that, I don't think this means you can interpret anything about the political leanings of self-employed, retired, or homemaker types, but this is just the sort of employment, or the sort of job type category that lends itself well to aggregation. So that's why it's all showing up at the top. The ones that get interesting are when you see large numbers associated with actual organizations. So a single electricians union put up nearly $5 million. Honeywell International, again, 74,000 individual contributions. Federal Aviation Administration, so the FAA employees are donating, a not insignificant amount of money per employee. Soros Fund Management, Euclidean Capital. Let's go down the list a little bit here. Ernst & Young, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin. Man. So those are fairly small dollar donations, but they're coming from a huge range of employees. I wonder how many people Boeing actually employs. 159,000. So, wow. Yeah, a not insignificant number of Boeing's employees donated to their political action committee. Let's see, Northrop Grumman. I hate to say it, I'm noticing a pattern of weapons manufacturers here. Comcast. Yeah, it's like a usual suspects of large companies that have political influence. Insurance, Raytheon, Google, there we go. 6,000 Google employees. Although we're starting to get into fairly, fairly smaller amounts as far as political action committees are concerned. I'm going to take one more look at this data in this way, and we're going to do it by occupation. In the meantime, I just want to thank anybody who checks this out. This is largely how I look at data when I'm in the sort of free-form exploration phase. There's so many rabbit holes that you can go down with a data set like this, and I usually just like to start out by going down a few of them. There are more systematic ways of getting at sort of explanation in this data, but for the moment, this is how I start. So yeah, occupation. Wow, the first specifically listed one. Again, we're sorting here by total amount, not by number of donations, but presidents and CEOs and chairmen give the largest amounts. let's see again, executive, homemaker, founder, investor, philanthropist, finance, not employed, physician, architects, giving a total of nearly $4 million. Students, interesting. 10,400 students, giving an average of $300. Seems kind of high for a student. Totaling $3 million across this cycle. Sort of interested in seeing like what's down in the 1 million range here. Producers, chairman and CEO, psychologist, portfolio manager. These titles could definitely stand some aggregation. And then I think some of the stories might start popping out a little bit more. Anyway, that's going to be it for following along, and this is definitely a fascinating data set. I'm going to grab the update. The FEC is going to keep pushing out a new one every month, and it's in a very usable format, so I suggest y'all check it out. It's pretty amazing. Otherwise, have a good one.